The transfer portal opens today, and if Baylor doesn't get these positions right, the whole team should just redshirt 2026.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by FanDuel and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in the world. Happy New Year. Happy 2026 to you. I am your host, Cam Stuart of ESPN Central Texas and the Rogue Media Sports Network. Appreciate you guys making this your first listen today and every day, and hope you're not working today. I sincerely hope that you can at least delay it till January 5th. Today, we're talking about why this is such an important day, because the transfer portal is open, even though there's still a lot of college football going on. And so we're going to attack the three biggest position groups that Baylor needs to attack in the transfer portal. And then we're going to talk about the fallout from Texas Tech getting shut out by Oregon, why that is bad for all of us, whether you laughed at it or not. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. But we start where we start. Today, January the 2nd, the transfer portal is open. And we can finally start to see who actually these schools have interest in, right? Who's going to start committing? January 2nd, that's when the visits will start, the commitments will start, and it's going to get really chaotic and hectic here in the next couple of weeks. So what I wanted to do today, on the inaugural day of the portal, is to look at the three position groups that Baylor needs the most help in. And before you guys start jumping down my throat, and reasonably so, okay, I know there are more than three position groups that Baylor needs help in. And that sucks to say, but it's true. So we'll look at some of the other ones at a different time. But I was thinking time-wise, we've got to limit it to three. And that's not a good start to your 2026 as a Baylor fan, right? We're just going to limit it to three position groups that they really need help in. And over the next couple of days, we'll start to hear the names emerge and start to find the names of the people that could actually fill these holes. But for right now, we're looking at position groups. So without any further ado, let's look at the top three. The first one that comes to my mind, and you can order these however you want, but this to me is the number one position group. I put in air quotes here. You'll see why in just a second. Because number one for me is the pass rush. Okay? We heard right after the season Dave Aranda say, hey, we need to work from the inside out. Offensive line, defensive line, and outwards. And Baylor does need to fix their entire defensive line. So that's technically the position group. But within that, it's the pass rush, which does include, obviously, outside linebackers in this Dave Aranda scheme. This is pitiful, just pitiful, the pass rush for Baylor for years now. Because for the third time in 4 seasons, Dave Aranda's vaunted pass rush was bottom 2 in the Big 12. 3 times in 4 years. This year, 2025, it just so happened to be bottom 1. The worst team in the Big 12 in terms of getting after the passer. And in 2024, they were middle of the pack. They were 8th in the conference. But as we remember, half their sacks last year came in one game against Colorado, a game they didn't even win. So it didn't really matter. But yeah, half of them came against the worst offensive line in Power 4. But that was 2024. If not for that game, you would have been talking about bottom 2 4 years in a row. And they have not been inside the top half of the league because they were 8th in 2024. They have not been inside the top half of the Big 12 since 2021. That's brutal, y'all. Like, that is so brutal. And since that 2021 season, the team only has 77 sacks in 50 games. Only Iowa State has fewer in the Big 12 in that same span. We are talking bottom of the barrel. And you want to get real bottom of the barrel? Like, we capped that off this year with 12 sacks in 12 games. Only Rutgers and UCLA had less sacks this year than the Baylor Bears. I'm not talking about the Power Four. I'm talking about the 136 teams in Division I FBS college football. Just 2 of them had less sacks than Baylor. It is the least amount of sacks by a Big 12 team in a 12-game season since Texas Tech in 2016. A decade's worth of seasons to find a Big 12 team that was this bad at getting after the passer. Like, that is brutal. And by the way, this was a position they circled and felt they had improved last year in the portal. One of those guys was Travion Barnes, who was hurt early in the season, but the other 2 that they were looking at were Amarion Winston and Matthew Fobbs-White. And those guys did not improve the pass rush. In fact, the entire pass rush got worse with them coming in here. So we're talking about like the only way to go is up kind of stuff for Baylor. And to add insult to injury, Jackie Marshall graduating. Camoran Morgan, the 4-star pass rusher from South Oak Cliff you brought in last year, kind of an upset. He's transferring. And the future of your pass rush, game wrecker, top 40 recruit Jamarion Carlton is not coming anymore. You had some hope in that position as recently as a month ago, and now you don't entirely. So you have really, really, really got to hit the portal hard at the defensive end, outside linebacker, defensive line entirely, but specifically guys who can get after the quarterback. You have not had that for years. Number 2 position they need to improve. Let's just flip it to the other side. The offensive line. As I think we all kind of know at this point, the offensive line needs a lot of help. They only have 1 starter returning next year, and that's Colton Price, who, to be fair, was statistically by PFF their best pass blocker in pretty much all the metrics and only allowed 1 sack last year. So that's nice and everything, but he's the only one that's coming back. And one of the ones that was disappointing in terms of going into the portal was Sean Tompkins. And if you look at his PFF page, he was pretty much the worst in every measure for guys who actually played like real snaps for Baylor last year. So maybe that's a spoonful of good in there, that the best one by PFF, Colton Price, is coming back. Although if you watch the games and you go by the awards, the postseason awards, Omar Agbedian was the best Baylor offensive lineman, and he is not coming back. Sticking with PFF in terms of the measurements of this, because there's not a lot of other ways you can measure offensive lines. So we're going with their grading. Baylor was 87th in pass blocking last year and 57th in run blocking. So outside of the top 50 in both of those things, it's a miracle they scored as many points as they did. And to add a tangible number to that, they allowed 22 sacks last year in 12 games for an offense that is completely built around and predicated upon getting the ball out quickly. And a quarterback who did get the ball out quickly, they still allowed 22 sacks. I mean, just brutal, just brutal. And by the way, because I forgot this stat for the pass rush, this is maybe the most amazing stat that I'll bring you in this show. Back to the pass rush real quick, because according to PFF, Baylor was 116th in run defense, terrible, but 124th out of 136 teams in pass rush grades. In itself, that's horrible, right? But 123rd was Georgia, and right behind them at 125th was Alabama. That just goes to show the narratives were kind of told about the SEC, right? Like, I mean, that's incredible. So you need to improve both lines. I'm not breaking any news there. But when you look deeper at the numbers, it is just terrible, man. And this offensive line, this was with a lot of guys coming back. right? This was bringing back most of your offensive line. This was supposed to be the culmination year. Tompkins didn't play the year before, but Lengel, Price, Agbedian, Siriaki, even some of the depth guys like Sidney Fugar, they were all coming back from that 2024 team. And you're about to go to your fourth offensive line coach in 3 seasons. Not good. Not good at all. That is a really tough position to just build out of the transfer portal with the resources that Baylor has. But, we can talk about DJ Lagway until we're blue in the face. You've got to improve that offensive line, or it almost doesn't matter who your quarterback is, as evidenced by this year. I know a lot of people were getting on Sawyer at the end, but Sawyer Robertson, the last 2 years, you can't ask for much better at Baylor in this transfer portal era. And this offensive line did not do him any favors in 2025. But there's still another position group that really needs a lot of help going into next year if Baylor has any chance of making a bowl game. We'll tell you what that position group is and one of the solutions that might already be coming along. That is next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode of Locked On Baylor is brought to you by our friends over at Reshape. Let's do it. Let's talk about something most men don't want to bring up, but absolutely should be bringing up. Stress from work, from money, from life. It doesn't just switch off at night. And when it shows up at the worst possible time, Reshape Ready is designed to help you take back control. It is a next-generation prescription treatment created to support both the brain and the body, so you can feel present, confident, and ready when the moment matters. They combine 3 clinically proven ingredients in 1 mint that dissolves under your tongue so it absorbs fast. You connect with a board-certified doctor online, and everything ships discreetly to your door. Most men ready in about 15 minutes on average, so you can stay present, confident, and in control when the moment is right. That's why over 150,000 men have already made the switch. So if you've been thinking about taking the next step, now is the time. Head to Rugiet.com/lockedoncollege. You can see it on our screen if you're watching on YouTube. That's RUGIET, Rugiet.com/lockedoncollege, all one word, to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Reshape Ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. Back to it on Locked On Baylor on the first day of the 2026 transfer portal opening. It is, as you guys know, it's going to get crazy. It's going to get chaotic. It's going to get hectic. And yes, Baylor has a lot of positions they need to improve upon, right? Even before guys started hitting the portal. But we're limiting it to 3 today. We've talked about the offensive line. We've talked about the defensive line. Now is where we get to a little bit of a more sexy position. Notice I did that after the Reshape read, of course. That other position is wide receiver. And I know some people are hearing that and thinking, oh, Cam, you saw this defense last year. Thank you for talking about the lines, but you saw this defense last year and you're talking about receiver is where they need a bunch of help. And the answer is emphatically yes. Yes, they are going to need a lot of help at that position because you look at the guys who are leaving. Josh Cameron, Cole Wilson, Kobe Prentice, Ashton Hawkins. And for the sake of what we're talking about, I'm going to include Michael Trigg, even though obviously he's a tight end, but he was your second leading receiver last year. So that's a ton of production leaving. What you have coming back, Lewis Brown IV, off a red shirt, a guy that Dave Aranda was really, really high on out of the portal. Kind of obvious, but he did speak about him a lot. Taz Williams, Jaden Porter, Ashton Jones, Ja'Cory Watson. It was one of the most impressive wide receiver groups in the entire conference last year. And the reward for it is returning just 7% of your wide receiver production from 2025 to 2026. 7%. And yes, to add to that, This is not a position group that you need to necessarily improve in the portal, but your quarterback room is quite unproven at this point. So you don't have the benefit of bringing in a bunch of new receivers and saying, well, at least we have Sawyer Robertson here and he can elevate these guys. Who knows? Edward Griffin or Walker White might be able to do that. But we have no idea. These guys have not taken real snaps in college football. Not a single snap when a game was in doubt for Walker White or Nate Bennett. And yes, Edward Griffin hasn't taken a single snap in college football. So you are really up against it when it comes to that wide receiver position. You're still an offense that is going to be built on the passing game with Jake Spavital as your OC, even though your best skill position is the running back room, right? There's still going to be a quick strike offense that does run the ball a lot, don't get me wrong, but is predicated on the big play through the passing game. You just don't have anything really, for all intents and purposes. You don't have anything coming back. Lewis Brown, the fourth, actually was the leading receiver amongst those guys coming back. Excuse me, Jaden Porter had 6 more yards. And Lewis Brown, the fourth, didn't play a single conference game. Jaden Porter was putting up numbers against Samford. No shade against him. I'm just saying, when we're talking about guys who were playing in the big games, the quote-unquote big games for a 5-7 team, those guys are not coming back. 7% of your wide receiver production. Good news, maybe, is that the name that I have heard the most in terms of a guy that Baylor is actually really looking at, going hard for, we had heard DJ Lagway. The other one is Iverson Hooks from UAB, and he plays wide receiver. I have heard this from some people around the program. You saw it probably on Twitter if you follow the show on Twitter. Mountaineer Paul from Locked On West Virginia, who is really plugged in recruiting, was also confirming that Baylor has serious interest in Iverson Hooks. And how could you not? How could you not have interest in this guy? 72 catches, just under 1,000 yards at 927 last year, 7 touchdowns, 13 yards a catch for UAB. And yeah, this was a guy who, not this past season, but the season before, was catching touchdowns from our old pal, Jacob Zeno. Heck yeah, man. And what's funny about this is, I guess this is college football these days. Iverson Hooks has caught passes in 4 different seasons, and he's still listed as a sophomore. So he should be coming in with 2 years of eligibility left. With this new, 4-game redshirt rule and an injury, he's got a couple of years of eligibility. So if you're keeping score at home, that means Iverson Hooks could be playing in 2027, and your map of guys who have caught touchdown passes or caught passes from Jacob Zeno in college can go from Chris Platt, who started college the same year I did at Baylor in 2015, to then extend all the way to 2027 when I will be 30 in that season. That spans the globe for Jacob Zeno, guys who are catching passes from him, which is kind of incredible. But Iverson Hooks, this dude can flat out play, man. And there's a lot of schools after him, not the least of which being our old friends, the Auburn Tigers, which is the one that I would be quite nervous about in terms of his recruitment. This is a kid who obviously played at UAB, but he's from Alabama, and Auburn's number 1 receiver is entering the transfer portal. So that's tough. And to add insult to that injury, Alex Golish, is that how you say it? Golish, the USF coach, knows exactly what Iverson Hooks can do because against USF this year, a ranked USF team, in which UAB lost comfortably, Iverson Hooks went for 10 catches and 146 yards. That's not bad, man. In fact, his best games this year were against the best teams on their schedule, including an upset win over Memphis, where he had just went absolutely nuclear in one of the best wide receiver games anyone's played all season, with 11 catches for 172 yards and not one, not two, but 3 touchdowns. We call that a hat trick in hockey and soccer worlds. He did it against a ranked Memphis team, which was a big upset victory for UAB. This kid is one of the best receivers in the portal right now. It would be a massive uphill battle for Baylor to go and get a guy like this, but it's not like Auburn was really jumping off the page either. It can offer him some more money. It's definitely more of a big brand name, but either way, if he goes to Baylor, if he goes to Auburn, he's going to a non-bowl team and would be the number 1 receiver at either school. So good chance we see him in that first game of the season. Just wondering what side of the field he's going to be on in Atlanta. But let me know what you think. What are the positions I missed? What are the positions that you were circling for Baylor in the transfer portal, and maybe some names? If you've got some names, that's something we're going to be exploring obviously next week. If you've got some names of guys for Baylor to be on the lookout for, let me know in the comment section below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a ton, and it helps make us continue to be the number 1 Baylor football show on YouTube. We're not done just yet. We've got to take a little Big 12 angle here because they are out of the college football playoff. And while a lot of us laughed at Texas Tech, this is really bad for all of us in the Big 12. We'll tell you why coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode of Locked On Baylor is also brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. And I don't need to remind you what day it is, not just portal opening day. It's Friday. And Fridays already feel different during the basketball season, but FanDuel is going to make the best day of the week even better with what we call NBA Happy Hour. It's your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts and for a limited time. From 5 to 6:30 Central Time have become appointment viewing with the Happy Hour, okay? It brings something new, boost, bonus, surprises, all kinds of goodies to you on a Friday evening right as you're leaving work. The timing is perfect. It's right before the games, and it's right as your weekend is starting. So add a little extra energy to Friday night basketball without needing to overthink it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour. Every Friday from 5 to 6:30 p.m. Central Time, that's 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Little basketball, little action, whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Coming back here on Locked On Baylor. Bad day. Bad day, sad day for the Big 12 on New Year's Day. I know a lot of Baylor fans were probably laughing at the result of Tech losing 23-0 to Oregon in the Orange Bowl. But unfortunately, y'all, that was really bad, potentially catastrophic, potentially reputation killing for the Big 12. You know, as much as it's nice to dunk on your Tech friends and say something witty like Baylor and Texas Tech have scored the same amount of points in the college football playoff, it's actually horrible for all of us. And I personally was rooting for Tech. I was. I know some people will wince at that, but I was rooting for Tech. I don't really have a problem with Texas Tech to begin with. We have common enemies, which I think is important in today's age of college football. And whether I was rooting for them or not, I really did think they were one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the college football playoff and had a legit shot to win the national championship. And what they did against Oregon was just embarrassing for all of us. All of us. Because I was ready to come on here and talk about how Joey McGuire was kind of building a team in a perfect way for 2025 college football. And yes, there was a lot of money involved. They were not even close to having the highest payroll of any team in college football, but there was money involved. But you look at the way he built this team from the inside out, which is exactly what we're hearing for Baylor, and anybody that is competing in college football is doing it that way. They are absolute monsters up front. They improved their defense a billionfold. We've never seen a defense like that at Texas Tech, to being legit, maybe the best defense in America. And they kind of showed it against Oregon. It's just that the way Baron Morton played, Oregon's defense looked even better. I mean, they were suffocating, right? But you look at the way that Tech built this team. You had a quarterback who had been in the system for a couple of years. They played smash mouth football. They went out and they went in the portal, and they didn't take chances on guys. And that's the luxury that some of that money has. But like, they went out and got guys who were starters already. They weren't looking and seeing like, oh, this was a 4-star or a 5-star who didn't really get a shot at this school the way Baylor does. They see starter, impact player. Let's go bring him here. He'll be an impact player for us. And all the things that made Texas Tech a 12-1 team going into the Orange Bowl was exactly the blueprint for how you build a terrific college football team in the mid to late 2020s. And it all fizzled. It all went up in smoke. And Oregon did beat them for sure, but for a lot of that game, it looked like Baron Morton beat his own team. I mean, golly, was he horrible. That's the worst he's probably played since that 22 game against Baylor, the Patrick Mahomes night where he threw 3 picks. I mean, just horrendous, a horrendous showing from Texas Tech. And again, you could chuckle for a minute, but it's going to hurt all of us down the road. You know, in this new 12-team format in the college football playoff, the Big 12 had a really good showing in year one, even though they didn't win a game. You know, we were talking about 1 4th and 13 play away from a massive upset, even though Arizona State was ranked higher than UT. That would have been a big-time upset in the CFP. And the next year, going off of all of that, you have a legit top 5 team from top to bottom, from start to finish, basically. And they not only lose in their first time of asking, but they don't even score a point. I mean, I was sitting there half joking, half serious, saying, is Texas Tech just going to need to get a couple of safeties and a pick 6? Like, is that what this is going to take? Because their offense can't do jack. And they finally get a goal-to-go situation. And that pass to Coy Eakin that's picked off in the end zone, it's really not even close. It's not even close. Like, that ball is in harm's way the entire time. Baron Morton sells from the beginning exactly where he's going on that play. And it's really, like, it's fine margins, but that's what college football is. It really wasn't even close to Coy Eakin, man. Like, it just throwing up a duck. It was a terrible, terrible, terrible look for the Big 12, to the point where I even saw BYU fans on the timeline questioning, ooh, are we really not that good? Because, you know, Tech scored like, what, 35 and then 26 on us in 2 games. It's just, overall, this could be a reputation killer, especially when you put it into the context of the SEC getting absolutely exposed so far in bowl season. Absolutely exposed. And now the whole college football world is starting to see that, maybe the SEC isn't quite as good as everyone tells us they are. And if you get a big Big 12 win and you have a Big 12 team in the semis at just as good a shot as anybody to win the national championship, if that happened on top of this SEC exposure, I think a lot of college football fans are saying, maybe this is a little bit more even than we thought. Maybe teams from the Big 12 and obviously the ACC, who has a team in the semifinals, maybe teams from those conferences can compete at the very top. And maybe we should look at this differently next year. You know, maybe we should give a little bit more credence to BYU. or a conference champion in Duke, who themselves beat a Big 12 team in a bowl game. It's been fairly solid, fairly good for the Big 12 in bowl season, but those two, not good. Arizona State, Texas Tech, your last two champions. So as much as it was funny to see Tech get shut out in one of, if not the biggest football game they've ever played in, it's a terrible look for the Big 12. And now you're not going to have those conversations next year of, well, Tech did this, and look what happened to these SEC schools. Look what happened to these Big 10 schools. That conversation now does not come up. They now look at it and say, 0-2 in the college football playoff, 12-team era. That TCU thing a couple years ago in the 4-team, that was a fluke. Look at what happened to them in the national championship game. Look at what happened. Look at what's happened to all the Big 12 teams that have gone to the playoffs since. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that is absolutely going to be the conversation. And if Tech had won this game and gone to the semifinals and beaten mighty Oregon, we really could have changed the narrative. The whole conference could have been looked at differently. Instead, it's going to be the same old, same old. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. What does this do to the Big 12's reputation? Let me know. And then be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We come at you every weekday, dropping in the morning on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts as well. I appreciate you guys so much for making 2025 such an unbelievable year for this channel. It was once again the highest rated year that we've ever had on this channel, and actually pretty comfortably so. So thank you guys so much for making it your first listen today and every day. We will see you on Monday on another edition of your favorite show, Locked on Baylor.